Welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. With me, as always, is Dave. Merry Christmas, Dave.
Merry Christmas, Hollis. This is our Christmas episode.
It sure is. Few days to Christmas. Yeah. We had a couple of snowbound episodes, Fargo and Wonder Boys, which leads us to cold Pittsburgh, which leads us to cold Chicago with the equally snowbound Home Alone, the end of our winter trilogy. How many times would you say you've seen Home Alone, Dave?
I've seen Home Alone once, and it was yesterday or the day before yesterday.
For those of you who are only hearing this, I had a Kevin McCallister look on my face, open mouth shock. What the?
I didn't even realize. I assumed I had seen it, and I started watching. And my first thought was, man, they really hate this kid. And then my second thought was, oh my God, I've never seen this movie.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we found the one man in America who has never seen Home Alone. That's great. Okay, well, I've seen it numerous times. So this will be yet again dueling perspectives on this movie. Before I get into what the movie's about, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up. So, it does what it's supposed to do. It is what it's supposed to be.
That it is.
It was enjoyable.
Okay, cool. So for those of you who are like Dave was a couple of days ago and never saw this film, it is from 1990. It concerns a child who is left behind, quote unquote, home alone by his parents and family, who take a trip to Paris, France, leaving the most annoying member of their family behind, who we all identify with very quickly and come to believe that his family is in fact the annoying ones. This last time that I watched this film, I really detested Kevin's family. Kevin McCallister. They're horrible people. Kevin McCallister, played by Macaulay Culkin, the child who's left home alone, is way better off. I saw this movie as almost like a superhero origin story. This kid was getting stronger by the minute without this family around him. Because we open and we meet the family in the throes of a panic where they're packing and doing all last minute things and trying to have a meal before they're leaving town. And Kevin and his family get into it, and they are unrelentingly horrible to him. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's not cute either. It's, you are stupid. You are incapable. Everyone here pulls their weight, but you. Rough.
His Uncle Frank, who is a detestable human being, he says to Kevin, after he very rightfully goes after his annoying brother, Buzz, and, things are spilled and dropped and tickets are ruined, his uncle says, "Look what you did, you little jerk." And Kevin's father says nothing. His mother says nothing. There's no Uncle Frank, like, Frank, what the hell are you? Don't talk to my kid that way. There's nothing. They all look at him like they're validating that little jerk line. I just wanted to rescue Kevin.
I'm glad that you're saying this. I thought I might be met with like, well, they had to set a tone, or it's all done in fun. But
no way.
And you're sort of you were just reminded of it the last time you watched, and I have a feeling that people have a fonder memory of how this, because it does need to establish that Kevin wants his family to disappear. Because there's this vaguely magical make-a-wish element. But I feel like that could have been done a little more softly.
Yeah. I will say that for a movie called Home Alone, you're saying to yourself before you see it, how on earth are they going to leave this kid behind? What series of events could possibly go wrong that they could leave the kid behind? And it's rather deftly done for such a basic movie.
It's like one of those Rube Goldberg mousetraps.
Yeah, it's this contraption.
It's fun to watch them get it done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hurdles.
There are a lot of hurdles. There's a power outage at the house, which knocks out their radio clock alarm that's plugged in. We're going to give them a pass on nobody having also set their watch alarm as a backup, or a battery alarm as a backup, or that Uncle Frank doesn't have his own alarm.
Someone who wakes up on his own, or someone who's a light sleeper who got up to go to the bath. I mean,
anybody.
And they're like, how many people are in the house? I believe it's 12 plus.
There's like 15 people or whatever.
Exactly. So you let that go. Everyone slept soundly.
By the way, when they're leaving the house, you see already at the crack of dawn, the power company fixing the line. This must be a very rich neighborhood, because I know where I was growing up in a very poor neighborhood, it would take days, sometimes weeks of various neighbors calling in. And we know all the neighbors are away to get anybody to come and fix the power.
And let me guess, that was constantly fouling up your trips to Paris.
Yeah.
It's a 15-person trip to Paris.
Right.
Like, if you identify with these guys, congratulations.
Yeah, you're living the American dream of the 80s. So in addition to the alarm clocks going wrong, things are kind of hectic. Also, because the tickets were ruined, they threw out one of them by mistake in the garbage they show us, and that happened to be Kevin's ticket. And then later, the eldest child does a head count by the van, and she counts a neighbor kid as Kevin. So they covered it a few ways.
Mm-hmm. Somebody sat down with a piece of paper and said, or maybe a whiteboard, I don't know, or a chalkboard, because it's old enough for that.
But like somebody a mass murderer killer board with various strings.
Yeah, pieces of the yarn.
Yeah.
No, I pictured just a bullet-pointed list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, give me reasons they couldn't forget this kid. It would be, well, if you have 3 kids, you're not going to forget one. Okay, got it. 11 kids. We'll make it a huge family plus cousins. Throw in some cousins. That'll give us a lot of kids. What's another reason? So somebody went through all the possible. Well, when they got there, wouldn't they notice they had an extra ticket? Okay, we need to get his ticket thrown away. What else you got?
Yeah, they handled it all.
And it's deftly done. You are correct. And a lot of times a movie setting up a premise is tedious. It's one of the fun parts of the movie is setting up.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons the title works, because it's important to know that this movie is about a kid who's left home alone, because it makes it twice as fun to watch the beginning.
It's how are we going to get all these snakes on the plane? You know, it's that same kind of premise where you're just like, all right, show me something. So we meet the entire family, and all of his siblings are various levels of mean and or annoying, culminating in Buzz, this big, heavyset older brother of his.
Devin Rattray.
Probably Canadian or something. He pronounces things like, I wouldn't let you sleep in my rum. I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. Or he says rough later. Like, you're bussing in siblings. But anyway, they're all annoying. And it gets so bad, so contentious between Kevin and his family that he ends up sleeping in the attic, which he's afraid of, which is another thing, another number on your checklist of how they forgot this kid. He's on a different floor entirely than everyone.
He needs to be on a different floor entirely, because there is a storm of chaos when they wake up late. There's running, screaming, slamming doors. Honestly, he needs to be 3 or 4 floors above them. But they have a well-insulated attic, let's say.
Right. Anyway, the other person we meet before they go away to Paris, we meet Harry, played by Joe Pesci, who is in disguise, we learn later, as a policeman, checking on the family and checking if they'll be around for the holidays. Harry is in fact a thief who is casing the joint, as he is other houses on the block, and he will return with his partner Marv, played by Daniel Stern.
Oh, I love Daniel Stern.
Oh, in everything. And Harry and Marv, aka Pesci and Stern, steal this movie. They are unbelievably great in this movie. For me, this movie has 4 people who are just killing it. There's Macaulay Culkin giving one of the best child actor turns of all time. It was not
lost on me that the kid was crushing it the whole movie.
Macaulay was the best child actor in the biz for a reason, and we see it on display. He's great. Marv and Harry are fantastic. And the old man is great. Yeah. Those 4 steal this movie. The rest of them, they all play their parts well. You have Catherine O'Hara, you have John Hurd. John Candy is fantastic in a cameo.
He is fantastic, yeah. I would put him next on the list after the 4 you mentioned.
Right. But I'd say the casting of those 4, if they got any part of that wrong, I don't know that it becomes the holiday classic it is.
Yeah. And a couple of times I was just familiarizing myself with who the actors are. Like, for instance, I'm looking at IMDb right now, and it says Macaulay Culkin, Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern, and I was like, good. It would have bothered me if John Hurd had been higher on that list, or if Catherine O'Hara had been.
Or if Buzz was ahead of Pesci.
Oh, well, speaking of Buzz, I don't know the years of these movies, but I feel like Buzz may have set something. Weird Science, I believe, had an older brother,
Yeah,
and
Buzz.
Back to the Future, the
Biff?
the bully Biff.
Biff.
He reminded me of both of those guys,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
an
was wondering
archetype
if
for
maybe.
sure. So, speaking of cameos, Macaulay Culkin's real life brother, Kieran Culkin, who everyone knows from Succession, is Kevin's little bedwetter cousin, which is the main
Oh,
reason that he ends up sleeping on the top floor. He doesn't want to sleep with the bedwetter.
the little kid with the big glasses.
Yep,
I didn't. Okay, well, he's very little in that.
he's
That's
tiny. Yeah, I ended up meeting him. I used to DJ twice a week, Saturday and Sunday at Beauty Bar every week for years. And I met Kieran Culkin one night. He was there and he got into a fight with his girlfriend. And it was a whole thing. He might have wet the bed that night as well.
was he little?
But he was not, he was
Kid?
all grown up when I met him. Yeah. Let's just stay on the family for a second. They wake up, realize that they've overslept, and they look at each other and they both say in perfect synchronization, "We slept in." I always find that line, "We've slept in," like so false. I have
Yeah,
never used the phrase slept in. Have you ever used the term slept in?
it's absolutely we overslept.
Yeah.
Um, or wake up to the person next to you, or oh my god. But I feel like the movie kind of does this often. It was almost like an intentional attempt at solidifying catchphrases. There were
Right.
lots of moments where it's like nobody does that. Nobody goes, "We slept in." Nobody
Right.
leans against the door and says out loud, "It's up to me to protect the house."
Yeah. You're thirsty for more. Yeah. It
Yeah, yeah,
was,
it's full of lines people don't say. There's a lot of looking the other way in this movie, at things that just are rather unreasonable.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and it's a kid's Christmas movie, so
Right.
or it's a kid's movie about being left home alone, which could have easily just been a thing, but
Hmm.
putting a bunch of snow and Christmas ornaments in it, I think is what made them rich.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I think it would have been a very popular movie, but
Hmm.
there would have been no particular time to watch it.
Yeah, that's true.
Making it Christmas made it scheduled viewing.
Also
So,
compounds the kind of mistake of leaving them home because Christmas is supposedly a time for families to get together. So it's like a
mhm,
holiday without a kid is even more than being without the
that's
kid.
true. Yeah, it is a magnification. It's also a way to get a lot of the neighbors out of town so that you get nothing but answering machines when
Yeah,
you
the
try to
kid is
call them.
truly alone too. He can't go to Tommy's house next door or whatever. There's
Yeah,
no
because all
like,
those billionaire families are in France.
right. Or parts unknown. What's funny? The eldest daughter or the eldest cousin, whatever she is, does the head count and counts the neighbor kid. The neighbor kid leaves. They're all in the van. Catherine O'Hara, as the mother, turns around and says, "We all here?" And she tells her the count. And 12 kids, 4 parents, 2
Yeah,
drivers, and
I
a
remember that.
partridge in a pear tree. They run through the airport, which is my least favorite scene in the movie. It's to run, run, Rudolph. I want to kill somebody every time I see that. And they're on the plane. Catherine O'Hara finally realizes she left him alone. And then everyone feels terrible and everything that goes on with the family. They're calling neighbors, they're trying to do this and that. It rings false to me that the girl, the older girl that did the head count, never has to answer for screwing up the count.
I thought about that.
I grew up in a family, I had siblings. Oh my God, if you're responsible for a younger sibling, like my sisters would have been tarred and feathered if they left me somewhere. It was on
Not to
them.
mention, the other 9 kids should have been going like, "Way to go, spaz, loser, blah blah blah."
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no
the other kids should
fallout.
have been attacking her. There's nothing for her. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can't pin it on the fact that this is a family that is understanding and doesn't blame people, because this is not that. We've already established
No, they're
that this
horrible.
family is cruel. Yeah, so you're right. She is yet to pay for her crime.
I think the best thing that Kevin did was avoid the police.
Well, that's
They would
always a good idea.
they would have put him because the mother calls the police and they're like, "We'll send someone to check on him." And then he doesn't answer when the police knocks. If he did answer, they would have put him in protective services And I picture him fighting for his supper with a bunch of Dickensian street urchins. And then when his parents do pick him up 3-4 days later or whatever, they're on a list.
Right. They're unfit parents.
They're unfit parents. So yeah, it's for the best that he didn't answer the cop. But yeah, that also shows you just how rich these people are, that they call the police almost like they're servants just to check on their kid. I don't know what that even means. And the police do. Yeah. I just have to say it because I don't think any movie will ever usurp it. But this is the whitest movie ever made. And I'm not talking about the snow. There is so much white privilege on display. It is maddening. From the parents talking to the police as if they're on the payroll, to their rich, ugly American sense of entitlement on display in the airport at France, where they grab the phone out of French people's hands. This is the worst family on the planet. By the way, there's a cameo in the airport. Hope Davis plays the French airline counter salesperson, and she is gorgeous. She's doing like a fake French accent. And I was just like, oh my God, that's Hope Davis.
Oh, that was a fake French accent?
Yeah, but I love Hope Davis. I've always loved her. And my favorite line in the movie, Dave, takes place during the airport sequence. She is trying to negotiate for a ticket swap with an old woman. And she's adding all of these things. I'll give you the ticket, $500, a pocket translator.
A language pocket translator.
Yeah, that's it. And these earrings that she liked. And the old man, who I've seen in everything. You know, he's guested on Seinfeld. He's guested on so many things. And he's got my favorite line. He goes, she's got her own earrings, a whole shoebox full of dangly ones. I don't know why. I love it. But it's taken on a life of its own, this line. And I'll sometimes drop it when, you know, my wife and I are talking about something, talking about earrings or talking about whatever, or like an old man's and I'll be like, dangly ones. Like, it will just, that line reading by that guy just nails it. I'm a sucker for a bit part actor who just comes in and just nails a line. And that is my favorite line. It can't be the line for this episode. No, dangly ones.
But I was hoping this would be our PG episode.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'll edit this down to a fine-tooth comb. Anyway, Kevin McCallister is home alone, and he encounters the thieves that are going to try to rob his house. And he sets himself up as the defender of his family, as Will Smith would say. And he is going to defend the family manse. He shows that the leaf doesn't fall far from the tree because he can be nasty when he wants to be, Kevin. Like the horrors that he inflicts upon these two thieves. I don't know that the time matches the crime for these guys. He really goes overboard. What is your favorite horror inflicted on Harry and Marv?
They all made me cringe. They all did their job. They all made me flinch. They did what they were supposed to do. Weirdly, the cellophane with like the lard and the feathers.
Brutal.
I'd almost rather get hurt than have that goop on me.
Yes.
The tar, as Daniel Stern is losing first shoes, then socks, then is barefoot on the tarred stairs. I think it's the tarred stairs that got me.
Mine is the burning hot doorknob that ends up leaving an imprint in Joe Pesci's hand. It's just, and the blowtorch on the head, like this is next level. He hates these guys. It's almost like he's taking all of the angst and all of the anger internally about his family and inflicting it on almost helpless, because they're horrible, inept thieves. Helpless kind of innocence.
I was going to say the word innocence actually comes to mind on a couple of helpless innocents. I wonder if making this film you'd be met with a lot more pushback now, like, oh, that seems a bit much. Oh, that seems a bit much.
Yeah, I think the reason they get away with it, there's an otherworldliness to the brutality. It reads like a live action Wile E. Coyote cartoon.
Yeah.
It's the kind of brutality, like in Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoons, where they go through hell and they're like, oh my God, that hurts. And then 5 seconds later, they're over that. It's like the bomb that
Yeah.
goes off on Daffy Duck or something, and he's like pitch black, and then
Turns him into a burnt match.
Yeah, or his bill is all the way on his back of his head. He shakes it off, and suddenly he's fine again, and the next thing happens.
And that brings up Daniel Stern. Because Daniel Stern, in breaking away, first of all, Daniel Stern, the most believable of those 4 recently graduated high school guys, Daniel Stern, while they're hanging out at the quarry, says it would be fun to be a cartoon. Like when you see in the cartoons, they get hit with a frying pan and their face becomes the same shape as the frying pan, including the handle. And then they go boing and they're back to normal.
Yeah.
That's always my favorite Daniel Stern scene.
It's a great scene, and it also explains Daniel Stern's acting method in every subsequent movie. It almost is like, I know it's in the script, but it's almost as if they could have been describing Daniel Stern, because in everything from Diner through City Slickers, he has this kind of rubbery physicality to his performance and a kind of cartoonish expressionism that somehow is never outsized and somehow reads as true.
And made him perfect for Home Alone. And I was like, what a great thread between the two. I'm like, he literally describes his Home Alone character. Him and Pesci sort of exist in a cartoon world where you can get burned and the burn doesn't bother you later. You can just survive all these, not just survive them, but sort of just brush them off.
Mm-hmm.
You burn your hand to the point that there's an M branded on your palm. That's it for you. That's the day. You're out.
Yeah.
You're out of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a scene in this movie that I've brought up, I think, in other episodes because it annoys me so much.
Here it is. Mac and cheese, people.
The mac and cheese scene. First of all, you don't put a scene in that kind of movie unless you let that character eat his mac and cheese. It drives me nuts. He prepares this feast, and he knew this thing had to be timed out. And I'm just built differently. I would set up my house of horrors, and then I would sit down to eat my mac and cheese. I wouldn't have the mac and cheese and then there goes my alarm. I got to go, or I'd scarf it down. It gives me anxiety every time. Why won't they let him eat it, Dave?
Well, on the positive side, there's going to be a lot more episodes of Pop Culture Graveyard. And from now on, you're able to say, that is the uneaten plate of mac and cheese.
It's true.
It's the rifle on the mantle. This is the uneaten plate of mac and cheese.
Right.
I thought while I was watching the film, he went shopping. I was like, he goes to the supermarket? I thought it all happened in the house.
Right.
So he's in the supermarket and he's buying stuff, and he bought mac and cheese. And I was like, Hollis' mac and cheese.
If only he knew. Save the money, kid. It's not all Home Alone. This movie should just be called Unsupervised, because he goes out quite a bit.
When he is confronted by the cashier, you're not alone, are you? I'm 8 years old.
Right.
Do you think I'd be alone? Where do you live? I'm not going to tell you. Why not? Because you're a stranger. That whole exchange is great.
Mm-hmm.
And establishes him as like a very capable guy.
Also, it underlines the fact why he found his family insufferable. They were not respecting him. They were not treating him as an individual. He's an individual in a family of sheep. Of course, he's butting heads with everyone. He does not feel respected. He knows he can handle certain things. They're putting a ceiling on him that he does not deserve.
There's a great lesson in this. I don't know how intentional it was, but there's a great lesson in this movie that once you stop stifling a damn kid, they're probably capable of great things.
Absolutely.
Are you familiar with Cameo, where you can pay people?
Yes.
To give a message to your friend?
Mm-hmm.
Macaulay Culkin simultaneously seems like someone who might be on Cameo because he plays those sort of washed up guys, but he's not washed up. He's terrific.
In fact, just a couple of days ago or a week ago or whatever, he got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
He does a great job of playing that part, though. It's like, look what I've become.
Right.
But it's like, I'm also extremely successful, relax.
Yeah.
But I wish he was on Cameo, because if he was, I would get a pool together and pay people so that we could have him call you and eat a plate of macaroni and cheese.
Oh,
And
that's
I think that would be
fantastic.
terrific.
We should start a grassroots campaign anyway to get him to do that, because he
Oh, that's
deserves
not a
it.
bad
We
idea,
should
because
send him a mac and cheese.
you may not be the only person. In a
Yeah.
world of billions, there's usually a few people that have the same opinion as you.
Right. We'll get an
So,
Indiegogo started.
all right, I'll get on that as soon
We'll
as we are
crowdsource
done
it.
here.
You know, he's fantastic. He's a great actor in this, obviously. He was great in My Girl. He was creepy in The Good Son. He had a great run while he was in his quote unquote prime for a child actor. But beyond that, he is great in a very underrated indie film called Saved. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or saw it.
I don't know it.
But it has to do with these kids at a very religious school. And
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
his character is in a wheelchair in that movie, and he's kind of a real cynical yet unbelievably lovable character. And so I highly recommend Saved if you want to see proof that Macaulay Culkin is just a great actor. Forget the child actor, but just a great actor across the board. So anyway, back to the film. During Macaulay Culkin's battle with Harry and Marv, which is ongoing and brutal, we are simultaneously cutting to his mother trying desperately to reach him as quickly as possible. But of course, flights are snowed in, flights are canceled. She ends up hitching a ride with John Candy and the rest of a bunch of polka bums, according to John Candy. They are a traveling group of musicians, a character that plays on one of the characters that he used to play in SCTV, where he would play with his brother or whatever. They were polka musicians. Everybody polka. Anyway, so it's a wonderful kind of soft callback to that. And he provides a lot of the heart of this movie, because if you stop and think about it, there's just like really bad feelings, and then really bad feelings, and then really bad feelings, and then a very sweet final minute.
Him and Marley are really the only two sort of kindness voices. Marley, the old neighbor, when he speaks to Kevin, there is a touching, kind exchange. And then John Candy fully solidifies the movie's holiday goodness. Well, yeah, we heard you saying that you're in a spot, and we're going, and of course we'll drop you off. Yeah,
just good-hearted.
And he just John Candies for the next.
Yeah.
He is so good.
Yeah, you love him. That's why he's a John Hughes special. You know, Uncle Buck. He's great in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, another holiday movie. He has a wonderful way of providing laughs, but also he is just real. He can be real, even while he's playing this kind of what would read on the page as a cartoonish character.
I think that it is realistic in a way. It feels like someone said, all right, I'm going to have her say, why would you do this for me? And then you just riff. I feel like John Candy always feels that way to me. It feels like the director said, John, just say what you would say.
If there's any actor that you're going to allow the freedom to experiment and riff, it's John Candy.
John Candy with his SCTV background and with his improv background. I think it's the improv background that makes him feel so real.
So let's go back to the old man, Marley. He rescues Kevin at the end. He is painted by Buzz as a scary guy, and he's dragging his garbage can full of salt, where he's just being nice to the neighbors and shoveling other people's walks. In the end, he saves Kevin. But along the way, they have a touching moment in a church. That actor is fantastic, and I've loved him for a long time. He's in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He is a real believer. He's someone who claims to have had a UFO experience. He also then talks,
he's at the table.
He also then talks about his Bigfoot experience.
Yes.
He was in a great episode of Amazing Stories, the TV show that I loved as a kid.
He'd be a go-to for that.
Yeah, he's just a great old man character. But here was just a fantastic career performance. He's equal parts creepy when he needs to be, and unbelievably warm and generous. You go from wanting to run away from him to wanting to give him a hug in record time. He is the first adult character to talk to Kevin like an adult. He does not insult his intelligence. He doesn't talk down to Kevin. He allows Kevin to talk back to him and give him advice as good as he gets. That's another reason, I think, why this film resonates. is that you have Kevin encountering every type of person he's going to encounter in the real world and learning to negotiate all of these different relationships and learning to find people that respect him. I am mature for my age. You know, that family, it's almost like Buzz gets a pass because he's older. And it's like age does not define maturity. Kevin is way older than Buzz maturity wise. You know, and the old man recognizes that. The old man treats him like we said, it's that trope, the kid and the older character, like Rushmore, or like Meatballs.
Yeah, we run into that over and over again. And it's always the same story. It's they're doing their mentoring, but at the same time, they are learning as much, if not more, from the younger side.
Yeah, and I don't think that we keep running into it. I think those films resonate with you and I, and they always sort of bubble up to the top when we're talking about movies we want to cover. I didn't think about it till now, but I think there's a reason that we keep seeing this trope in all of our things. And I think probably you and I have come up against that in our own lives enough to kind of be drawn to these films.
Yeah, don't just muss my hair. Like, it's okay if you muss my hair. That's nice. if Trip from Meatballs musses my hair, I'd be psyched. But the thing is, Trip would never only muss my hair. He'd also say, how's it going? He'd joke with me, but he would make adult jokes. And I don't mean adult jokes. I mean, he would treat me as an adult. And it is. There's also, when Marley approaches Kevin in the church, they're still playing the scary sort of axe murderer version of Marley right up until the point. It almost felt like CGI. That actor was so good at melting the scary guy off of him and saying hello to Kevin. I almost wanted to rewind and say, did they do something? Did they change his makeup?
Did they shave him a little bit? Did they like clean him up?
It felt almost like a Jim Carrey metamorph. You know how he could make his face one thing and make it something else? No makeup, no special effects, nothing. So anyway, the guy playing Marley, he nailed that transformation. It opens up that terrific scene. And you know, a pretty adult heavy moment, you know, in this kid's movie about how he doesn't see his son. And because he doesn't see his son, he doesn't see his granddaughter.
Right. Those two characters and why they have such a great moment together, they're each home alone in their ways.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Kevin's family left him accidentally. The other guy's family left him purposefully, which hurts more.
Yeah.
You know, Kevin doesn't know they left him accidentally. So they're both on this kind of lifeboat together. It's very telling. They're both wounded. And I love it in movies when two wounded characters find each other and help each other become a little more complete. So that's a nice moment. So let's just give a little more air to Harry and Marv.
They certainly deserve it.
They certainly deserve it. There's something great about them in that those two characters, you know, I think we said it about the Nice Guys, where you almost want to see 5 more buddy pictures with the Nice Guys. I want that for Harry and Marv. I want just almost like when I was a kid, there were all these movies that Don Knotts and Tim Conway did together. The Private Eyes, the Apple Dumpling Gang. Yeah, it was just these series of adventures. I want that for Harry and Marv. You know, they're such a great team. We talked about in Fargo with Gare and Carl being this kind of George and Lenny from Of Mice and Men. You get that same kind of thing here, where you get just the kind of like surly, shorter, older, talkative character. And then you get the tall, gangly, kind of out there character in
a little dopey.
Yeah, and Marv. But there's kind of an underlying partnership. There's a love there in a weird way, too. You get a sense of that. They're in it together. You know, at one point, Harry is screaming because this kid is unleashing a new terror on him. And he's like, I'm coming, Harry. Like he wants to
I'm in the house.
I'm in the house.
Coming in the house.
Yeah, I love him. And when Marv's in trouble or he screams for something a couple of times, you hear Joe, and he's like, Marv, like they're trying to reach each other. I just love those guys. And they don't deserve any of this.
No, and they don't. When I said they deserve it, I was talking about when you said, let's give them some more air. I was like, they deserve it. They deserve a little more coverage. What do they call the house? The house is like a golden oyster or something.
The phrase you are searching for is actually silver tuna.
Oh, the silver tuna. Okay.
And I believe it originated here because I did like online searches and they all credit this movie, like the Urban Dictionary, and it's
Oh,
all
come
like,
on. That's
I
ridiculous.
I know.
Joe Pesci made it up for the movie.
Yeah, well, or the writers, because I think it's
Right.
perhaps to give these guys their own slang, like such as when like Marv says a house is like, oh, that house is very G. Like, I don't know what G stands for, like glorious or, whatever.
Gangster in other
Gangster,
circles.
yeah, or it's worth a G or something crazy. But I hope it's one of those things Pesci threw out. Was just like, let me try a few things,
There was a lot of like, that's great, Joe. Can we do it again with less cursing?
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. But silver tuna, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there is no backstory.
No backstory.
So,
You've got it all. I think we've got to talk more about Kevin before we wrap up.
I have something to say about Kevin. I thought that Kevin went, oh my God, I'm home alone.
Oh, you thought that was...
I put my hands on my face just now, if you're listening and not watching. I thought he put his hands on his face and said, oh, I'm home alone.
Oh, God. I don't even think this movie could survive that line with all the catchphrases. I don't think it would be the classic it was.
I wasn't necessarily thinking that he said it, but I always thought that photograph was the moment that he realized.
Yeah, it's an aftershave moment.
It's the moment he tries aftershave. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that. And it became the official image of
it's the poster. It's the whatever. Yeah. It's iconic. Doesn't he get zapped twice? He like forgets about the aftershave and puts you on a second time and screams again.
I also really enjoyed watching him put on aerosol deodorant. He's hysterical in those bathroom scenes.
He's very good. He has that running external monologue. It's not even an internal monologue, but we get to hear him. And he's like, I've cleaned all of my major crevices. Like he's, one of the charming things about this film is the film within a film. Angels with Filthy Souls, I think is the name of it.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And it's something that Kevin uses to great effect every time he wants to act like an adult through the door or scare someone. He uses it with the pizza guy, and then later he uses it with Harry and Marv, or Marv anyway. It's got these two characters, Johnny and Snakes. And Johnny is just this wonderful, you've been smooching with all the guys. Like he's just this gritty kind of old school gangster, and there's gunplay, and it's just such a wonderful, and that's where the line, keep the change, you filthy animal, comes from. And that became iconic too.
Yeah, and one of my memories was I knew more than one child. I think it was when I was college age, and I met a couple of like a college friend's family, and one of my college girlfriends, I met her family. And in two cases, there was a little kid in the family who used the expression, you filthy animals.
Wow.
There was this kid who was like, somebody forgot to put napkins out. And he said, why are there no napkins, you filthy animals? And everybody laughed.
Did you know where it was from then?
I didn't know what it was from. I think somebody said it's from a movie, or maybe they said it's from Home Alone. I don't know. But then I heard it again from another little kid, you filthy animals. And I love that the movie had quote unquote like hard language, but they used a very acceptable hard language, and it worked. Like kids picked it up and used it, and it's adorable to hear a little kid say "you filthy animals."
Yeah,
it works great, and I really think it made it out into the 9-year-old world.
Yeah, I mean that's how you know you have a hit.
Imagine you're Chris Columbus. Is that one of the names? Imagine you're him, and you're in a diner, and you hear some kid at a table say, "I need more water, you filthy animals." Like you hear a little kid say that.
That's great.
Your heart melts. You're like, I did it. I spoke to the kids. And I love the idea of filming this black and white gangster movie. I wish I could see a bunch of footage from making that. What's the name of the name of the movie is
Angels with Filthy Souls.
The making of Angels with Filthy Souls would be terrific.
I also think that that might be the movie that they wouldn't let him watch the night before. He was like, Uncle Frank says I can't watch it. It's too old for me. And the mother is like, well, if Uncle Frank said it, it's definitely too big. Because Frank is like not the best parent at all. So yeah, he gets to watch that. And he watches, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, which is a classic. He watches some fun stuff.
Setup.
Yeah.
But I was watching closely. There's a lot of good setups. I missed the fact that like he was not allowed. So one of the first things he did was watch a movie,
Yep.
and another thing he did was order a pizza that was exactly the way he wanted it.
Right.
I was so proud of myself because I was watching so closely because I'd heard so
Yeah.
much about this movie, and I suddenly realized I'd never seen it. The first
Hmm.
time he goes down to the basement where the scary furnace is, there's mannequins down there.
Yeah.
There's mannequins in the basement.
They made it
The
as scary as possible.
But the fake party scene that comes
Right.
later has mannequins in it. Like, how many mannequins does this house have?
Yeah. How did he get it? Yeah.
Actually, it had several in the basement. And you saw them in advance. We showed you.
Right.
We showed you.
It also shows you he's making lemonade out of the lemons that have been given to him. And he's taking what was scary, that basement, and making it work for him, turning it into that. But also, I just love the way it handles. There's a scene in Big where that's a movie we should do. Let us know if you want us to do Big. There's a scene where Tom Hanks's character, he's like a 12-year-old or 13-year-old in his head, but he's in a grown-up's body, but he's still a kid. And he has to spend a night in the big city in this sleazy hotel. And he's crying his first night. And there's like people banging on the door, and there's gunshots, and there's screaming. And you jump cut to him like a week later or whenever it is. And there's the same knocks on the door, the same screaming, gunshots. But he's just sitting there eating Oreos, listening to music, reading the comic book. And he's just happy as a clam. It shows what you get used to and what you become, inured to, and how you become an adult. And Macaulay Culkin goes through the same transformation. He goes to the basement. He's terrified every time he runs up. And then you see him and he's just doing his laundry, and the furnace tries to scare him again. And he's like, shut up or whatever. It talks about the journey. And that's why I'm like, being left home alone was the best thing that ever happened to this kid. And there's an alternate universe where that plane on its way to Paris crashes and all are killed.
That's a beautiful universe.
He's Bruce Wayne. Who knows what he becomes? He could fight crime.
Right.
Harry and Marv were his start.
Yeah. His Penguin and Riddler.
Yeah.
If his transformation from can't pack a suitcase to capable human being, if that transformation continued at the same rate,
forget
he would
it.
have been Batman in a week and a half. He was off and running.
Yeah, he's tremendous. So anyway, I had forgotten this, but when the old man saves Kevin, when he hits the bandits with the shovel, right before that, do you remember that Kevin is about to have his little fingers bitten off by Harry?
Yeah, I'm going to bite off each of these fingers.
Yeah, and
one by one.
There's a part of me, I don't want to see children hurt, but there's a part of me when Kevin's mother comes home where Kevin holds up his middle finger to her and every other finger is chewed off. So it's a way of like flipping her off for forgetting him, and also a way of like drenching her with a bucket load of guilt. I just kind of want that. Okay, so finally, Kevin successfully fights thanks to the old man who saves him. The cops come, and the old man was very smart. He put him alone in his house so he could watch. I assume Pesci and Stern's characters were unconscious until the police arrive, because Kevin gets to watch from his house while the police roll up and take those two into custody. And there's this great moment where Joe Pesci's character in the back of the squad car sees Kevin looking at him, shows you just how nasty Kevin is. He looks at him, he's just like, he waves at him and smiles.
He gives him a friendly wave.
He gives him the French Connection wave almost. And it's just this kind of like, yeah, I did this to you.
Kevin is capable of being a real bastard.
He's a badass.
He is badass. He really is.
So Kevin, the next day, it's Christmas. He wakes up thinking he'll witness a Christmas miracle and his family will be there. And there's no one.
Oh, it's snowing too. So the snow actually is a hint to him that his miracle has come true. He wishes them back when he goes to bed.
Right.
The same way he wished them away.
Right.
And it's snowing. So he's like, it worked. Almost like because snow has taught him that it's a Christmas special.
Yeah. And they're not there. And he's crestfallen. And then moments later, his mother arrives. Finally, she's dropped off. She comes in, Kevin, and she's like, oh my God. And she goes to give him a hug. And this is one of my favorite moments in the movie. Before his mother apologizes to Kevin, I love when he first looks at her with derision. He just stares at
Mm-hmm.
her. And in my head, I always hear Rudy Ray Moore saying, "Are you for real?" It's almost like that same kind of thing. He's looking at her like, "Are you kidding me?" And then she's like, "Oh, Kevin, I'm so sorry." And he's like, "Yeah, all right, bring it in." He's like, "I deserved an apology." And I'm like, "You deserve more than an apology. You deserved an apology before you went to bed that night before they left you. You deserved an apology every day since then." So that whole all is forgiven thing at the end, and then his family comes. It's like, all right, whatever.
There's a small setup for that. John Candy sets us up. He instills in the mom the possibility her child might not even speak to her for 6 to 8 weeks because John Candy left his son in a funeral home.
Right.
He spent the night with a corpse and was so damaged he didn't speak for, I forget what it is, 8 weeks. He didn't speak.
Yeah.
8 weeks or so, 8 months. I forget how long he says. Yeah. And I like that sort of sets up that the mom, because otherwise that mom is like, oh, I'm sure he'll just run up to me. So that moment that Kevin takes to decide whether or not he's going to forgive his mother, that's her punishment.
At least he had that moment. But I think his parents and his family deserve the house of horrors that was inflicted on Harry and Marv way more than Harry and Marv deserved it. We've already talked about how much we hate Kevin's family. A part of me really wanted Kevin in an alternate Home Alone. I really wanted Kevin to sort of be adopted by Harry and Marv and become like a third member of their Wet Bandits gang, because Kevin's quick on his feet, he's imaginative, and he's handy in a fight. And I think Harry and Marv could use him. And Harry and Marv seem way nicer than his real family. They're already a little unit.
He's earned their respect.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of joining up with him. And let's face it, he'll be the brains of the outfit. Those guys are willing to commit the crimes, and Kevin's willing to plan them.
He will. I can see him drawing up his little schematics in crayon like he did for protecting the house.
Only now it's a bank and a jewelry store.
Yeah. And do you know how many scams you can run with a little kid?
A kid like that?
Yeah. Top shelf grifter.
So he's missing out on
his true calling. Awesome. But here's my fear at the end of the film. There's nothing to denote that they're going to treat Kevin any differently from then on. His father even says, what a funny guy, or whatever.
What a funny guy.
How dare you?
Like they can't, as if he's a TV repairman or something who's passing through. Also, is it the last line? What did you do to my room?
Yeah, Kevin, what did you do to my room?
They let us know this changed nothing.
Yeah, it's terrible. I want Kevin to finish that attic into a third floor apartment for himself and just get him a separate door, separate staircase, and let him live parallel to you, because he proved he deserved it and you don't deserve him.
Give him a doorbell, and if anybody wants to come in, they can ring it. If he wants to let him in, he'll let him in. If not, nothing.
So Kevin good, family bad. I want to once again applaud Macaulay Culkin. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. This was our Christmas gift to you, our salute to Christmas. Where would you put this, Dave, on the list of top 10 Christmas movies of all time? Does it make it onto that?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I'll put it in the top 10 somewhere. How about I'll just say I'll put it above Die Hard.
Nice.
Total cop out. Total cop out. But yeah, it's good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I see why people watch it over and over again. I see why it's a tradition. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And that sled jump off that looked like it wouldn't work, but worked amazingly. The toboggan jump off the stairs. I had seen that in the ads, and that was pretty incredible. And I really enjoyed that.
Right.
I want to say before we end that you brought up a movie that you said, "Oh, we should do that," and I want to remind us what it was.
Oh, Big.
Okay, yeah, Big. And I agree. And also we brought up Daniel Stern's Breaking Away. That's what I'm going to call Breaking Away from now on. Daniel Stern's Breaking Away. And I think we should do Breaking Away as well.
Yeah, me too. Those two should move up in the rotation. Yeah. In closing, I want to say that the reason this movie is so great really comes down to Macaulay Culkin and his performance, because he is such a good actor that this ceases to be a children's movie. There are a million movies with the lead as a child, and either you can or you can't identify with him when you're an adult. But here, much like with A Christmas Story, you identify with this kid because he's such a superior actor. and he can hold the attention of adults as well as children. Kids identify with him, but adults identify with him as well. And that's the mark of a really, truly gifted child actor, such as Jodie Foster or Tatum O'Neal when she was in Paper Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are certain performances that young people give.
All them bad news bears.
All them there bad news bears. That, I think, is why this movie resonates and is a classic. And yeah, I think this is probably a top 10 Christmas movie for me. It's probably number 10, only because the bulk of my favorite Christmas movies are all like from the 30s, 40s, 50s, mostly, with a couple of later ones. A Christmas Story, Elf are up there.
Oh, yeah, those are good recents, yeah. But then March of the Wooden Soldiers.
Miracle on 34th Street, and Christmas in Connecticut. There are certain ones that I just love.
The Grinch, too, and Peanuts, but I guess those are special. Those are TV specials.
Right, but I put the Grinch there. That is a Boris Karloff. You're going to do better than Boris Karloff? Come on.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching. Merry Christmas to everyone. Thank you for listening.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy whatever you celebrate. Yeah, we will see you next week with a non-holiday episode. Do we have a candidate for line of dialogue yet? If it's We've Slept In, I'm going to kill myself.
No, it can't be We've Slept In. I don't want a title that makes me go, oh, every time I hear it. It also can't be You Filthy Animals. Or
right.
I mean, you would get a lot of recognition, almost too much recognition with You Filthy Animals.
I'm trying to think of the whole film. It's got to be a Harry and Marv
line. I'm trying to think of the whole film.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. Oh,
something you say.
Film.
Some normal person says.
Yeah. If there's a takeaway from this film, no matter what your age, if you're 9 or if you're 90, when the cops are knocking on your door, don't answer.
Don't answer.
That's the takeaway.
That's good advice. This is Hollis and Dave's daycare. You leave them, we love them. Don't answer when the police knock.
Happy everything, everyone, everywhere.
Right. Take care, Dave.
All right, bye.
Hollis and Dave would like to thank you for enjoying Pop Culture Graveyard.